All right, let's dive into something really cool from the world of machine learning. It's all about a new tool that helps solve a problem that, honestly, we all face. How do you make not just good choices, but diverse ones? And it all starts with a surprisingly simple little trick. Seriously, think about it. You're putting together a playlist, you're picking a project team, or, you're an AI building a recommender system. You're always wrestling with the same puzzle. How do I get the absolute best stuff, but also make sure I have some actual variety? Exactly. This is the perfect example. You want amazing movie recommendations, right? But you don't want 5 different superhero movies just because you watched one last week. You need that quality, for sure, but you also crave diversity to keep things from getting boring. That tension is at the heart of so many of these problems. And this isn't just a matter of personal taste. It's a fundamental challenge that researchers actually have a name for: the quality versus diversity dilemma. You see, intelligent systems are making these kinds of choices all the time. When an algorithm summarizes a long article, or recommends what you should buy next, or even designs a scientific experiment, it has to do this balancing act. It needs to pick the very best individual options while also making sure the group of options it picks covers all the important bases. Now, to tackle this, mathematicians and computer scientists came up with a pretty clever tool, one that's specifically built to encourage diversity right from the get-go. They're called Strongly Rayleigh measures, or SR measures for short. Now, the key phrase to latch onto here is negative dependence. It sounds complicated, but it's really just a fancy way of saying these models are allergic to redundancy. They are naturally wired to prefer sets where the items are different from each other. But, and this is a big but, the authors of the paper we're looking at today pointed out a major catch. While these SR measures are great at promoting diversity, they're not very flexible. Trying to adjust that balance between quality and diversity, well, it's really hard. It often requires a ton of painstaking manual effort for every single new problem. So, what's the fix? Well, the researchers came up with a solution that is just beautifully elegant. They created what is essentially a simple tuning knob that gives us direct control over this whole dilemma. They call it the Exponentiated Strongly Rayleigh measure, or ESR. And just look at that formula. All they did was take a standard Standard measure, that's the mu of S, and raise it to the power of p. That tiny little p right there, that's the entire game changer. That is the whole innovation. And this is where that tuning knob idea really comes to life. That p becomes a simple dial you can just turn. Want more diversity? Crank the dial up. Want to ease off on the diversity and focus more on the quality of individual items? Just turn it down. It gives us this really intuitive, simple control for what was a super complex trade-off. So here's exactly how it works. If you set p to be greater than 1, you're sharpening the model's taste for diversity. You're basically telling it to aggressively hunt for unique items. If p is exactly 1, well, you've just got the original SR measure, no changes. And if you set p to be less than 1, you're smoothing things out. You're relaxing the rules a bit and allowing for more similarity in the final set. Okay, so the theory is slick, right? But does it actually work in the real world? To find out, the researchers put it to the test on some classic machine learning problems. First on the list was anomaly detection. And the thinking here is pretty simple. If you crank up that diversity knob, the model should, in theory, get way better at noticing things that are truly different from the norm. In other words, outliers. And wow, the results really speak for themselves. Just look at this table. In all 3 datasets, setting p to 2, which remember demands sharper diversity, led to a better performance score. I mean, on the letter dataset, the score jumped from 0.82 to almost 0.85. That's a really clear and consistent improvement right across the board. So the takeaway here is that the hypothesis was totally right. Turning up that diversity knob really did make the model more sensitive to unusual stuff, making it a much more effective tool for finding those pesky anomalies. All right, next up, they tested ESRs on a task called kernel reconstruction. Now, in simple terms, this is all about picking a small but very representative sample of data points that can stand in for a much, much larger data set. It's yet another classic quality versus diversity problem. And the results here? They're even more dramatic. This chart shows the test error for a few different methods, and remember, lower is better. The standard model, where p equals 1, does okay, but just look at the EDPP with p set to 2. It literally cuts the error in half. That's just a massive leap in performance. So the story is the same. The evidence is just crystal clear.
Having the ability to just turn up the diversity preference with that simple P knob leads to way better outcomes. Okay, so we've seen the math, we've seen the results. Let's pull back for a second and think about the big picture. What does an innovation like this really mean for the field? So, when you boil it all down, what did the researchers really give us? They gave us a more flexible tool, they gave us an incredibly intuitive way to tune it, and they delivered solid proof that it actually works better on real-world problems. I mean, it basically checks all the boxes for a really useful and elegant contribution. Look, if there's just one thing you take away from all of this, let it be this. A deeply complex, fundamental problem in machine learning, that balance between quality and diversity, now has a simple, practical control knob. And that is a huge leap forward. And that kind of leaves us with a pretty exciting thought to chew on, doesn't it? This work gives us one simple knob for one really important problem. But just imagine, what if this idea could be expanded? What if every complex choice our intelligent systems have to make could be fine-tuned with something just as simple and intuitive? Now that is a future that's worth exploring.